Usually when we talk about power, or strength or resilience, there's this deeply ingrained expectation of, like, hardness.
Right,
Think of a
absolutely.
skyscraper with these sharp glass edges just cutting into the sky. Or, a perfectly tailored, stiff business suit.
Or literally a weapon made of cold, unyielding steel.
Exactly. You look at those things and the brain immediately registers them as strong.
Because they're impermeable. I mean, the entire design language of modern power is built around deflection. We're taught to respect structures and people that take up space aggressively and just, refuse to bend.
Yeah, but then you step into the world we are exploring in today's deep dive, and that entire architectural blueprint is just thrown right out the window.
It really is.
We're looking at a stack of sources detailing a global force that has completely conquered the modern world. And it is armed with plush bunnies, pastel pinks, and giant sparkly eyes.
Which is such a wild contrast.
Yeah.
It is. We're dissecting a cultural phenomenon that people often dismiss as just cartoons or kids stuff, usually by people who don't realize they're actually looking at a massive philosophical and aesthetic juggernaut.
Because it challenges our fundamental assumptions about what resilience is actually supposed to look like.
Right.
When you study the underlying mechanics of this aesthetic, you realize it isn't a retreat from the world at all.
Right.
It's a highly sophisticated way of interacting with it.
Okay, let's unpack this. The core phrase that keeps jumping out of our sources today is made up of 4 specific words: cute, kawaii, adorable, tender.
And what's fascinating there is that those words are often used interchangeably in casual conversation, but in the context of this aesthetic, they're definitely not a redundant list of synonyms.
They're building blocks, right?
Exactly. They are cumulative. They act as building blocks to create what the research calls a maximum sweetness aesthetic zone.
A maximum sweetness aesthetic zone. I love that.
Yeah, so if we break the mechanism down, cute is the baseline. It means visually charming, but crucially non-threatening. Then kawaii brings in the specific cultural aesthetics of being soft, childlike, and endearing.
And then adorable steps it up.
Right. Adorable is where the psychology really kicks in. It introduces a behavioral demand, inspiring this deep sense of protectiveness in the viewer. And finally, tender is the emotional peak. It implies something gentle, delicate, and entirely vulnerable.
So for you listening, whether you're a pop culture fanatic who already has, like, shelves of manga in your room, or you're just intensely curious about the visual language of the modern internet, understanding how these 4 words interlock is a shortcut.
A very powerful shortcut.
It's a lens into a massive global shift in how humans express emotion and how we resist the crushing pressures of daily life. And, to understand how this aesthetic engineered its way into our brains, we have to look at how it started.
Which was definitely not in a corporate boardroom.
Exactly. It wasn't executives trying to sell merchandise. It actually began as an act of grassroots schoolyard defiance.
We're looking at the Maruiji Rebellion in the 1970s.
This story is so good.
It's incredible. Basically, Japanese schoolgirls spontaneously began rejecting the strict, vertical, variable thickness strokes of traditional calligraphy.
Right.
Instead, using these newly popularized mechanical pencils, they started writing in this deliberately bubbly, horizontal, childlike style. Mariji literally translates to round lettering.
And they were drawing these massive rounded characters and completely filling the margins of their homework with, like, tiny hearts, stars, and little smiling faces.
And the establishment reaction was just pure panic.
Total panic.
Yeah.
Schools sent out formal warnings that this bubbly handwriting was going to ruin national literacy.
Teachers were actively banning it, confiscating notes.
But instead of stopping, it spread like a contagion across the entire country.
And scholar Sharon Kinsella points out in our sources that this wasn't just teenagers being difficult. This was the birth of modern kawaii culture as a distinct visual language.
Wow.
You have to remember the context of the 1970s there. This was a highly formalized, high-pressure society.
Right, so by adopting this handwriting, these girls were actively prioritizing softness, play, and expressiveness over the rigid formality expected of them.
It was a visual strike against the pressure cooker of impending adulthood.
It's like modern teenagers using highly specific emojis or obscure internet slang that completely locks adults out of the conversation. It's a secret language of feeling.
It's a great way to put it.
And that immense, uncontainable grassroots energy eventually caught the eye of the commercial sector. In 1974, a designer at Sanrio named Yuko Shimizu created a small white cat sitting on a vinyl coin purse.
Originally called Kitty White.
Yep, but we know her as Hello Kitty.
The absolute titan of the aesthetic.
But structurally, I have to ask how this works. I mean, our sources describe her design as a masterclass. Perfectly round head, tiny, non-threatening features clustered in the lower third of her face, the single bow to the left.
Everything perfectly balanced.
Right, but the stroke of genius that everyone points to is that she has no mouth. Taken literally, a creature with no mouth is pure body horror.
It does sound like a monster when you say it like that.
It really does. Why did that specific absence work so incredibly well all over the globe?
It comes down to the psychological phenomenon of emotional projection. If a character has a wide, beaming smile, their emotional state is fixed, they are happy.
Okay, making sense.
So if you, the viewer, are having a terrible day, that smiling character creates emotional friction. You can't connect with it. By removing the mouth, the designers weaponize a sort of empathic blank slate.
Oh, wow.
Hello Kitty doesn't dictate an emotion to you. She invites your tenderness. With no mouth, she functions less as a distinct character and more as a vessel.
She reflects whatever you're feeling in that exact moment.
Exactly. If you're sad, she looks like she's quietly commiserating with you.
So Hello Kitty proved you could make a character a blank vessel for consumer projection. But eventually, creators realized they didn't just want you to project your own emotions. They wanted to force a very specific emotional response out of you.
They wanted to engineer a feeling from scratch.
Right. Which brings us to a foundational concept in the source's Mo.
Spelled M-O-E.
And it translates roughly to budding or sprouting. But in this context, it refers to an involuntary, overwhelming feeling of warmth, protectiveness, and affection.
It is that specific sensation when a character's emotional vulnerability is so intense that your chest literally aches. You feel the sudden, desperate urge to shield them from the world.
The visual science behind triggering Mo is just meticulously calculated. I mean, the sources lay out an anatomical blueprint. First, the eyes. They take up a full third of the face.
Which is massive.
Huge. And they feature vivid, complex colors, but more importantly, they contain hikari, these intricate catchlights or reflections.
Right, the Kari suggests the eyes are brimming with unshed tears or deep emotion, signaling that the character is acutely alive.
And feeling deeply. Then you have the proportions. It heavily utilizes the chibi style, where the head is 1/3 to 1/2 of the total body height.
Which is a direct tap into evolutionary psychology. If we look at Konrad Lorenz's concept of the baby schema, primate brains are hardwired to respond to specific proportions. Large heads, large eyes, retreating chins.
We just can't help it.
We really can't. When we see those proportions, our brains release a flood of dopamine and oxytocin. It disables our aggression and triggers an absolute mandate to nurture and protect.
So the artists are basically hijacking the very mechanisms that prevent humans from abandoning their infants.
It's exactly what they're doing.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. If it's just cynical biological hacking, pressing the nurture button in our brains by drawing giant baby heads, it would feel manipulative and cheap.
Yes, it would wear off quickly.
But the aesthetic goes so much deeper than just anatomy. It dictates the entire environment. The skin uses namaraka, which is a gentle gradient shading technique instead of dramatic, harsh shadows.
Softening everything.
Right. And you have the famous omega mouth, literally shaped like the Greek letter omega, signaling a soft, contented happiness. And the colors are strictly regulated into what the sources call a whispering palette.
Like millennial pink, sakura pink, lavender, mint.
Pastel yellow. No shouting colors allowed. High contrast is essentially banned.
Because the emotional resonance relies on that total harmony. The anatomical proportions trigger the initial biological spike of attention, but the whispering palette and the lack of sharp corners do something much more profound.
What's that?
They lower the viewer's visual cortisol. They create a visual safe space. The imagery isn't just saying, look at this cute baby. It is whispering, look at this gentle world where nothing can hurt you and nothing expects you to fight.
Wow. So we figured out how to hijack the visual cortex with huge eyes and whispering colors. But a static image only goes so far, right?
To actually build that emotional connection, to get someone to feel protective, these characters need flaws.
They need personalities that demand to be looked after. And the Kawaii universe ties personality intrinsically to visual design, creating these incredibly distinct archetypes.
Oh, the archetypes are so specific.
They are. You have the Genki girl. She's radiant, bouncing energy, usually coated in warm corals and yellows with a loud, unguarded laugh.
Yep.
Then you have the quiet dreamer in lavender, with her eyes half-lidded carrying a sketchbook. You have the sweet, clumsy one who tries so hard, constantly trips, but gets back up with a little bandage on her cheek.
That bandage is iconic.
And my personal favorite, the tiny, fierce one. She's half the height of everyone else, arms crossed, furiously furrowed brow, just refusing to be underestimated.
Those archetypes set the stage for a genre that completely revolutionized the concept of the hero, the magical girl genre.
Yes, shows like Sailor Moon, Cardcaptor Sakura, and the massive Precure franchise.
For anyone who grew up watching those shows, we usually just accept that they fight the forces of darkness wearing ribbons, petticoats, and tiaras.
But historically speaking, that is a massive philosophical shift. I mean, the traditional Western hero's journey involves putting on tough, spiky armor.
Batman has Kevlar. Iron Man has a literal titanium suit.
Exactly. A hero is supposed to harden themselves against the trauma of the world. But for the magical girl, tenderness the armor
They completely removed the Kevlar.
and replaced it with vulnerability. The frills, the bows, the flowing ribbons, even the fact that they cry during battle, they're weaponizing their own softness.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the magical girl genre rewrote the rules of engagement for an entire generation. Sailor Moon made the radical argument that a crybaby could be the savior of the universe.
Usagi is clumsy, she's obsessed with snacks, she is constantly overwhelmed by her emotions.
But she saves the world not by becoming a stoic, unfeeling warrior, but through the sheer power of her empathy and her friendships.
And Precure expanded on this by showing that every type of girl, whether she's athletic, studious, domestic, or incredibly shy, has inherent power.
The fundamental thesis here is that softness is a source of extraordinary strength. You do not have to amputate your emotions or become hard to be powerful.
I'm struggling with a leap here, though. We just established that Kawaii is fundamentally about creating a gentle, whispering safe space, lowering visual cortisol.
Right.
So how on earth does a phenomenon like Carrie Pamu Pamu fit into this? For those who don't know, she exploded globally in 2011 with music videos featuring dancing anatomy, rainbow food, and literal eyeball clouds.
It's definitely a visual overload.
And alongside that, you have Dempa music. Imagine a 1990s arcade soundtrack played at double speed, layered with hyperactive, helium-pitched vocals.
Oh, yeah, it's intense.
That doesn't feel safe or whispering. It feels like an anxiety attack. How does this aggressive sensory explosion belong in the same category as a pastel bunny?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, this raises an important point about ownership and subversion. What you're describing is the maximalist evolution of the aesthetic. It is absolutely a punk rock subversion.
Okay, how so?
Think back to the Harajuku fashion subcultures of the 1990s, famously documented as an anthropological record by Fruits magazine. You had Lolita fashion, which is about reclaiming Victorian and Rococo childhood elegance, strictly on the wearer's terms, completely divorced from the male gaze.
And you had Decora, which involved wearing hundreds of plastic hair clips, mismatched neon prints, and rainbow layering.
Exactly. The density of decor was a deliberate barricade.
A barricade against what?
Against the mundane, gray reality of the adult corporate world. By taking the softness and turning the volume up to 1,000, they were taking total aggressive ownership of the aesthetic.
I see.
It's a way of saying, you think cute is just for quiet, submissive, manageable girls? Watch this. It pushes sweetness so far that it becomes strange, slightly overwhelming, and completely undeniable.
So the eyeball clouds and the high-speed Dempa music are weaponizing cuteness to overwhelm the senses.
Yes, it is no longer asking for your protection, it is demanding your attention.
And we've seen the intent behind that weaponized softness spread globally. The sources detail how different cultures adapt this toolkit.
Like in South Korea.
Right, you have Ajo, which is the highly performative, deliberate skill of cuteness in K-pop. It's not just acting like a baby. It's a complex negotiation between the idol and the fan.
The idol displays a temporary hyper-cute submission, which paradoxically grants them massive influence and deep parasocial loyalty from millions of people.
And in China, you have Meng culture, where the internet is flooded with chibi formats designed to extract an involuntary, visceral awe response.
And in the West, we saw the soft girl aesthetic take over TikTok.
Curated pink palettes, heavy blush on the nose to simulate a subtle vulnerability, butterfly clips. They're all taking this visual language of softness and wielding it deliberately to carve out space for themselves.
Precisely.
So what does this all mean? Stripping away the Harajuku street fashion, the anime eyes, and the high-speed music, What is this aesthetic actually demanding of us in our daily lives?
That's the real question.
Why should you, the listener, care about the mechanics of kawaii if you aren't wearing petticoats or analyzing K-pop music videos?
Because at its core, it offers a distinct philosophy: softness as resistance.
Okay.
We live in a hyper-capitalist world that relentlessly values hardness. Society rewards relentless productivity, cutthroat ambition, total self-sufficiency, and strict emotional containment.
We're expected to be impenetrable.
In that specific environment, choosing to engage with softness is an act of quiet rebellion.
Just like those schoolgirls in the 70s with their bubbly handwriting, refusing the strict strokes of the establishment.
Exactly the same principle. When people choose to wear ruffles, or keep a collection of plush toys on their desk, or curate a soothing pastel environment for themselves, they are refusing the mandate to be only functional
Only Siri.
and only adult in the traditional rigid sense. They are asserting that the gentle, the small, and the whimsical have inherent, undeniable value. They are carving out a sanctuary.
That immediately makes me think of the manga Yotsuba, highlighted in our sources. It's a beautifully simple story about a 4-year-old girl, Yotsuba, who is just discovering the mundane world.
It's so pure.
She's encountering a ceiling fan, a swing set, a sudden rainstorm for the first time. The manga has basically no plot. There are no villains. There is no dramatic tension or trauma to overcome.
It is just her encountering the world with total, unguarded joy.
And reader after reader reports that their chest literally aches while reading it. It's not a performance of cuteness. It's a pure distillation of innocent presence.
This raises an important question, which perfectly illustrates what the sources call the tenderness economy.
The tenderness economy.
Kawaii generates an environment of emotional warmth that actively disarms us. It signals a suspension of judgment. When we see that sweet, clumsy archetype stumble and fall, she isn't failing.
We don't view her as incompetent.
She is demonstrating the profound courage of full emotional honesty. In the tenderness economy, your vulnerability is not a liability you have to hide behind armor. It is the very mechanism that connects you to other people.
Wow. Let's bring this all together. We have mapped out a fascinating evolution today. We started with Japanese schoolgirls rejecting a high-pressure society using the simple curve of a mechanical pencil,
We examined the genius of Hello Kitty's blank slate empathy.
and dissected the exact evolutionary science of the Mo face that hijacks our nurturing instincts. We saw how magical girls fundamentally rewrote the hero's journey by turning empathy and tears into impenetrable armor.
Unpacked how Harajuku and hyperpop music turned softness into a maximalist punk rock sensory barricade.
And we traced how this all coalesced into a global philosophical resistance against a world that constantly demands we be hardened and unfeeling.
It is a brilliant reminder that what society often dismisses as a simple, frivolous pop culture trend is frequently a profound psychological need finding its expression. We all need a visual and emotional safe space.
So for you listening, if you feel the urge to keep a small plush toy by your monitor at work, or if you find yourself gravitationally pulled toward a pastel, whispering color palette when your stress levels spike, validate that instinct.
Absolutely.
It's not immature. It's not a regression to childhood. It is a highly evolved, philosophically grounded way of building a sanctuary for yourself in a very harsh, sharp-edged world.
Could not agree more.
Which brings us back to where we started, thinking about the nature of perfection and flaws. In the glossary of our sources, there is a fascinating cultural term, kawaii.
Ah, that's a great concept.
It translates roughly to gross cute. It describes designs that are deliberately unsettling, maybe a little weird or asymmetrical, but still deeply, undeniably endearing.
It pushes the boundaries of what cute can contain.
Exactly, demanding that we feel affection for the strange and the imperfect.
Yeah.
So I want to leave you with this final thought to mull over. If human beings can engineer aesthetics that train our brains to feel deep tenderness toward gross, cute monsters, and if we can instantly love the clumsy fictional characters who constantly spill their lunch, what would happen if we applied that exact same kawaii lens to our own real-world flaws? The next time you make a mistake, or you feel utterly unpolished and messy, instead of beating yourself up with the hard rules of the adult world, can you view your own vulnerability as simply kawaii?
That is a wonderful challenge to walk away with, finding the strength to extend that maximum sweetness zone to ourselves.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Take care of yourselves, and we'll catch you next time.